Happy Sunday, beautiful patrons. As always, thank you for your love and your support. Today's message is built upon the foundation of a saying that I came up with a few years ago. More than likely, you've heard it, but if not, it goes like this. Skepticism is my nature. Freethought is my methodology. Agnosticism is my conclusion. Atheism is my opinion, and humanism is my motivation. The very first time I can remember experiencing skepticism is all the way back when I was a small child, young enough to still believe in Santa Claus. We lived in a single-wide mobile home in Rose Pine, Louisiana, where my family still lives to this day. And this was an exceptionally cold winter for Louisiana, so much so that my stepfather insisted that over Christmas Eve, all the windows be closed and locked, and the front door locked as well. This threw me into distress, as if my little dysfunctional family was not enough trouble now to know, with my skeptical mind, that Santa Claus had no access into our home, thus would be unable to bring me my presents, truly distressed me. And before anyone else could intervene, my grandmother, the one that I've talked to you all about so many times, at that time tall and slender, powerful and red-haired, stepped forward, intervened, and explained to me that there was no Santa Claus. What an influence she's always had in my life. But apparently skepticism had an influence in my life as well from very early on. This skepticism, I will admit, must be somewhat motivated by selfish motivations. Not selfishness in the negative Christian terminology, but selfishness or selfish or self-centered in the form of everyone trying to take care of their own hides. Even whenever I was 16 or 17 years of age, that young, fresh, enthusiastic minister standing behind the pulpit for one of the very first times, and it would become my obligation to teach those that I love that not only are they, but also am I in danger of a fiery hell. That same form of selfish skepticism would cause me to question that eternal, damnable doctrine of hell. Later on, that same selfishness, that same selfish motivation would even cause me to take a different look, a look outside of the box in regards to other people's sexuality. And thus, I would discover that free thought was not only my methodology, it was indeed an extremely pleasurable experience. I still remember sitting on that orange and brown shag carpet in my best friend's living room of his small apartment, once again located in Rose Pine, Louisiana. It was a trying time for my friend and his family. They had just discovered that their father had been a closeted homosexual for decades and decades and decades. This turned this family, who had been Baptist and been very conservative Republicans, on end. And I was there to experience this revolution of sorts within their lives. I remember drinking the lukewarm Mountain Dew that my friend served as we discussed back and forth the concept of homosexuality, never before dealt with in my life. And here I was, 17 years old, preacher of the gospel. At this point that I bring you into his living room, I have been defending the idea that homosexuality was merely a choice. It has to be a choice according to modern Christianity, because if it's not a choice, it cannot be a sin. And it needs to be a sin because there's just really too many verses that are against it. But all of a sudden, in a very gentle and gracious manner, my best friend turned to me and said, "Okay, I get it. It's a choice. So Jerry, please tell me, at what age did you choose to like girls?" At that moment, everything for me changed, and it is a very clear experience of free thinking because I had to allow my thought process to operate outside of the box that I had built and or was given. Matter of fact, in many ways given at birth. And I discovered, not just in that experience, but in so many other free thought experiences, the true pleasure of being intellectually honest and being intellectually curious. I was, from that moment forward, very much an Indiana Jones of theology, looking for the secret artifacts of truth, trying to get to the bottom of every discussion and situation. Now, in some ways, you could say, unfortunately for me, the area in which I was digging contained absolutely no artifacts of truth. That's the reason why I go on to say that agnosticism is my conclusion. I had dug and dug and dug for over 25 years looking for bedrock, looking for the bottom of each issue, motivated by a love for people and a love for God, continuously trying to get to the bottom of things. Many times, I will admit, with selfish motivations. I thought if I could find the truth, I could save myself. I could save myself from behaviors that I had wished to change for a lifetime, that I could save myself the internal whisper of agony that comes from not having a good answer for life's biggest questions. And more importantly, I could save humanity and in many ways save it from itself. But there were no answers. And eventually I fell in love with the idea of not having answers. As a matter of fact, one of the main criticisms my book Hope After Faith received was that I told the story from my point of view at the time of the experience. If I thought I witnessed a miracle, I told the story as if I was seeing the miracle for the first time. And then I did not go back and explain how the miracle took place, because for me, it's not about giving answers, but it's about asking good questions so that each individual can discover their own answers. And because I do not feel as if I possess all the answers, I'm not very much of an evangelist. I wasn't a very good evangelist back then, and I'm not a very good evangelist today. And it's why I clearly say that atheism is simply my opinion. Having searched and dug throughout the sites as far as I could dig, I came back with more questions than answers. But if I have to give you my opinion, then atheism is my opinion. As a matter of fact, you don't know me because I have answers, but you know me because I had questions, and these questions were noticed by people who either intentionally or unintentionally brought me a certain amount of notoriety. As a matter of fact, this unintentional notoriety that led to touring the country and speaking for groups is the very reason why this saying exists, because immediately I was thrown into a very diverse field of ideas and concepts, all within the secular movement. Some people called themselves and thus their groups skeptics. Some people did not use the word skeptics, but instead preferred to think of themselves as free thinkers. A few groups that I spoke for could not go as far as being atheist, but they would take responsibility for their agnosticism. And of course, so many groups that I spoke for were atheist. But the reality of it is that everywhere that I've gone and everyone that I've talked to, in so many ways, we are so much like my grandmother all those years ago that felt a need to intervene, to step in and attempt to answer a question, and if not give a good answer for a question, at least give a sympathetic ear, and to try in whatever way possible to relieve a certain amount of anxiety. From my grandmother, I still carry with me very much a love for all people, and that's why I say humanism is my motivation. I really do love everyone. And I really do love myself. And in many ways, I'm still that child trapped in that dysfunctional, single-wide mobile home who's trying to fix his broken family. But now my family is the entire world. It's one of the reasons why I try not to get hung up on labels. It was okay for me to connect with all the skeptics by telling them, yes, skepticism is my nature. It was okay for me to use the label of free thinker and say to all the free thinkers, yes, free thought is my methodology. It was okay for me to connect with the agnostics and say, hey, guess what? I'm just like you. Agnosticism is my conclusion as well. And it's been okay for me to connect with the atheist and say, hey, we've looked at this as best we can. We've looked for the evidence that did not exist, and we have accepted the evidence that does exist. And though there's so many questions still out there, I'm just like you. Atheism is my opinion. And now I reach out to the rest of the planet. Whether it is the progressive Christians or the very liberal Christians or liberal and progressive believers of any type, I'm not ashamed to let them know humanism is my motivation, and somehow we all have to work together to save our very broken home. Using Reverend Michael Dowell's terminology, we all must be pro-future. And that's what we're motivated to be. Even when we're doing our best to free our inner children from our past and to fully, completely, enthusiastically enjoy our present, our humanism still motivates us to work together in a very proactive way for our future. Whether today you are dealing with your past, whether today you are attempting to enjoy your present, or whether today you are focusing your activism on making the future a brighter place for all of us, there's one thing for sure you're doing. You, my friend, are being brave.